Let's talk the state of small business. According to a U.S. Bank report, nearly 90% of small business owners and employees remain optimistic towards the future of their business. But even the optimistic are still feeling the pressures of staffing shortages and financial burdens from the pandemic. For more on this report and its findings, I'm joined by Shruti Patel, who is the Chief Product Officer for Business Banking at U.S. Bank. Thanks so much for taking the time here. Breaking down this report, fresh, hot off the presses here. I mean, what was the biggest takeaway read-through on the state of small businesses right now?
Well, thanks for having me here, Brad. Great to be on the show. This year's report was actually particularly interesting in the sense we saw almost a juxtaposition between the sentiment of small business owners and the realities they are facing. So we saw almost 90% of small business owners have experienced successful growth over the past year. And almost 75% of them remain very optimistic about the future of the businesses. But at the same time, there were notable pressures which came out in the report. They're experiencing labor shortages, supply chain disruptions continue to exist from COVID. And AI was one of the topics which surfaced a lot.
Really?
We saw a lot of excitement from small business owners in terms of AI tools and automation helping them to be more effective. But at the same time, as we surveyed the employees of the small business owners, there was inherent apprehension that potentially the future of their jobs could be replaced by AI.
What's driving the growth for these businesses right now? We're going to come back to that AI point, but you mentioned within this that you found that almost 3 in 4, 73% of owners reporting that their business has grown over the past year. What type of growth are we seeing among small businesses right now?
We continue to see some really good consumer demand across the small businesses. And so, whether you're talking about the B2B sector, whether you're talking about the B2C, the healthy consumer demand continues to grow. And so, both driven by economy, regardless of the inflationary pressures, they are experiencing year-on-year growth. I mean, to some extent, it also talks about the resilience of the small businesses, which is super important for the communities they serve. But they are tackling through some of these challenges pretty well, regardless of inflation.
And so you mentioned AI a moment ago, and we mentioned the growth. So let's marry the two together. When you have this type of growth that we're seeing right now, naturally, and at any point, any small business owner or operator would be right to figure out, okay, how can I extract more margins from this business? How can I make sure that I'm improving the profitability of the business as well? And more of them leaning into technology. And so when you surveyed and really got a sense of how many of them are doing that successfully, how is that also passing through to their margins and to their profit right now?
That's a great question. So there were two things which really stood out in the report. There is one perennial pressure which small businesses are always experiencing year on year, and we've always seen it surface through the report. That's really help with back office cash flow management and workflow automation. So they're looking at very integrated solutions for cash flow management, whether it's accounts receivables, accounts payables, because that's really going to drive the bottom line profitability for these businesses. When it came to AI, some of the sentiment we saw is 60% of small businesses have already started deploying AI, automation and tools. So, think ChatGPT, chatbots, Drift, Lena.ai. We're seeing small business owners really use them for customer service operation improvements, for personalized customer recommendations. And a lot of them expressed the sentiment that this was really important to drive profitability, but also improve worker productivity, which is helping them then turn them back into worker benefits and, work across the labor shortages which they're experiencing.
Do you get the sense that small businesses are bracing or trying to get ahead of any type of economic downturn that we see that moves us towards a recessionary looking picture, if you will, or a recessionary environment?
Absolutely. So a lot of the small business owners, while they're fighting current pressures, are also doubling down on ensuring that customer engagement, loyalty, and stickiness is very core to them. So in case of a downturn, they want to make sure that they continue to keep consumer demand up and continue to grow their businesses, as well as leverage a lot of these cash flow tools, integrated experiences across banking and payments, and workflow automation to drive bottom line profitability.
Great to have you here on set with us, breaking down the findings from the survey. Shruti Patel, who is the Chief Product Officer for Business Banking at US Bank. Thanks so much.
Thanks again for having me.